Welcome to another episode of InRange. This is another one of those black powder episodes that at least some of you really seem to enjoy. Of course, I do as well, so I'm excited to bring this one to you. This is the Remington Revolving Carbine. In 1865, when the U.S. Civil War went into remission, this was the second most common revolver of the conflict. This is the Remington New Model. Well, you almost always see this referred to as the 1858, but it was never called that. There was a patent number on the barrel of the patent year of 1858, but it didn't go into production until many years later. And when it went into production, it was the Remington New Model. So anyways, 1865 comes around, the open hostilities end, and Remington is stuck with an amazing amount of parts and frames and cylinders and barrels and everything ready to make more of these. But that said, the market's pretty saturated with revolvers. And so they need to do something with this. And something they do indeed. They take all those surplus parts and realize, you know what we can do is we can make a carbine, specifically targeted at the civilian market, the hunting market for the most part, but of course applicable for self-defense as well. In 1865, the idea of cartridges already exists, but Smith & Wesson holds the patent on the bored through cylinder, so they still have to make percussion guns. And so when this 1865 revolving carbine comes out, it is still a percussion weapon. It was both in 36 caliber and 44 caliber. They had the 36 Remington New Model and the 44 caliber New Model. And when they went to this, of course, they stayed with 36 and 44 because really it was just the pistol with a longer barrel and a rifle stock on it. And you would load it the normal way you would load any percussion gun. Powder, ball, caps on the rear. Gives you 6 shots. However, by 1871, the patent ends, and in 1872, Remington starts releasing these as factory cartridge conversions. And when I say factory cartridge conversions, all they did was put in alternative cylinders that now accepted 38 caliber and 46 caliber rimfire cartridge ammunition. However, even before 1872, while these were on the market, many blacksmiths and gunsmiths and such were already converting these to cartridges. And in fact, you will see these in all sorts of iterations of cartridge conversions, even ones that are in 45 Colt. So why don't we turn the camera around, take a closer look on this gun, and then let's go shoot it a little bit. Okay, as you can see, I've got the revolver and the revolving carbine right next to each other, and they are identical firearms. All they've done is put a longer barrel on and put a rifle stock on it and a little bit of a different trigger guard. But that's it. All these parts are interchangeable. The cylinders, everything else is exactly identical. But now they at least have something unique to put on the market, which is a carbine. Now, like I said, when they first came out with these, they were percussion only, and that was because they didn't hold the patent. They made some under license with Smith & Wesson, but that's expensive. But in 1872, they went to cartridge conversions, and at that point you could buy them in either way. You could buy either percussion or cartridge conversion. Now, one of the things the Remington does well is it makes it easy to swap cylinders, as many of you probably already know, because you've heard the lore that this gun was used heavily where you would just carry one gun and swap constant cylinders because you keep a bunch of these already loaded on you. Now, that's historically not true. I'm sure someone somewhere did this once or twice, but in reality, people did not carry extra cylinders, especially percussion ones, because when they're loaded with powder and ball and have percussion caps on them, if you drop them or hit them, guess what? They'll go off. They're like a little hand grenade in your pocket. Additionally, we know this is not true because if people were carrying extra cylinders, you know what you would see on the primary sources of the time? You would see the sale of extra cylinders, and you don't. You don't see anyone advertising or selling extra cylinders, and you don't see anyone selling or advertising any form of leather or load-bearing gear to hold extra cylinders. So again, I'm not saying no one did this, but it was not a common practice. That said, to convert this to a conversion for cartridge, it's very easy to do. This is a cartridge conversion from Taylor's. This is 45 Colt. And even though these guns were called 44s, the designation and the way we designate calibers has changed over time. This really is a .45 barrel. And in fact, when they went to rimfire, they called it 46 caliber. But when it was percussion, it was called 44 caliber. But a .454 projectile, which is what you use in round ball, is the same thing you're going to use in 45 Colt. So anyways, to change this not a firearm that criminals can carry all across the country because the laws don't regulate not a firearm. By the way, that's not exactly true either. You literally just take down this, which is normally the ramrod that is used to seat projectiles in its muzzle loading form. Put the gun on half cock, pull this pin, pull the cylinder out, which is not as easy as it looks sometimes. Take your conversion cylinder, slide it in, line it up, close the pin, close the rod, and now you have a cartridge firing gun. However, while this is a reproduction and this is a modern cartridge conversion, that is actually how you would load the gun with a cartridge conversion as well. Every time you fired your 6 shots, you would have to open this up, put it on half cock, pull the pin, pull the conversion cylinder out, open it up, pop out your 6 spent cartridges, put in 6 more, seat this little plate that has the firing pins on it, which in the rimfire, of course, it has little slots bored out for the hammer to hit the rimfire. Rim, close that up, fiddle with it until you get it lined up, which is sometimes harder to do than it looks. And then close it up, and you'd have another 6 shots. So there's a lot of reasons that revolving carbines were never a good idea. Not just this one, but kind of all of them. With a revolver, there's a gap between the cylinder and the barrel, and from here you'll get leaking gases, sometimes even spalling little metal fragments, depending on the timing of the gun. That means that no matter what, if everything's working perfectly, there's stuff coming out of here that strikes you when you're firing it, even from behind. This is not a fun gun to shoot. In its percussion iteration, there's the potential of a percussion gun to chain fire, which means a spark from one chamber can go to another and ignite more than one chamber. And if you're holding the gun like this, never mind the spalling and gases coming out from the cylinder gap, if a chain fire happens, your hand is going with it. So you can't hold this gun like this. That's not how you use this. You'll end up holding it in this weird way like this. They even give you like a little tang there to hold on to. And so this is how you fire a revolving carbine. This is the only safe way to fire a revolving carbine. So to demonstrate how those gases really do leak from the gun, I've just got a piece of paper here, and we've got this loaded with black powder cartridges. And I'm going to fire 1 round, just kind of holding this next to the gap. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what happens to this paper. Whoa. It blew it out of my hand. Let me go grab it. So that is what would happen to your hand if you were holding the gun in properly. So if you ever decide to shoot one of these, make sure you hold it the way I'm describing, like this, and get nowhere near that cylinder gap. Another historical idiosyncrasy is that the conversion from 36 to 38 rimfire gave you 6 chambers, but the conversion from 44 percussion to 46 rimfire meant there wasn't enough material in the cylinder and it only held 5 rounds. So if you went with the 38, you got 6 rounds, and if you went with the 46, you got 5 rounds. Now, this modern conversion cylinder will hold 6 rounds, but for typical safety reasons, and let's say for historical accuracy, I've only loaded 5. Now, I just fired 1, which means I got 4 left. Oof, I just got a bunch of gas and stuff on my face. Yep, and that's it. Lost count. Now, that target's at 50 yards, so this is definitely a force multiplier in engaging a target at distance that would be a lot harder with a pistol. Possible, sure, but more difficult. So with these sights and that barrel giving you more velocity, but also sight radius, this does bring something to the table that you wouldn't have with just your pistol. So I just fired my rounds. Now I need to unload, pull that down, get this to half cock, pull that cylinder pin. Yeah, see, it's pretty unwieldy. And then, yeah, you're supposed to do this. Yeah, there it is. Okay, I got it out. So then you pull that little doodle off and then use a stick or something to get the spent cartridges out, because they kind of don't just fall out. All right, I'm going to go reload and we're going to shoot a little more. It's that time of day in the desert where you get those nice, long, cool shadows. Anyways, I've loaded 5 more rounds, hammers down on the empty chamber, although we're simulating a 5-round 46 rimfire at this point anyway, right? Although these are 45 Colt. And there were some 45 Colt conversions of this. Like I said, they just weren't factory. Got a target there at 50 yards. Let's go ahead and ring it. One of the things no one seems to talk about when it comes to the Remington model percussion revolver, the new model, whether it's regarding this revolving cylinder or the revolver, is the cylinder pin, the arbor on a Colt, has absolutely no deal, does not deal well at all with black powder fouling. I've fired just a few cylinders at this point, and going to half cock, this gun is starting to actually already get sluggish and slow. And that's because the black powder fouling is building up on the cylinder pin. Unlike the Colt has tread on it, almost like tires on your car, and the black powder fouling goes into that tread. This little cylinder pin gets fouling on it, and it starts getting real bad real fast. So anyone that watches my channel here with any regularity knows how much I love historic firearms, Old West firearms, and black powder. Very specifically this Old West period, post-Civil War to like the 1920s. Define that as you see fit. But I gotta say, of all the Old West guns I've shot, this is not the least functional. In fact, this does bring something to the table. The ability to hit a target at distances that would be hard with a pistol and fire it faster than you could normally with a pistol, especially at range. It does that. But the loading and unloading, obviously the percussion is irrelevant. Even with the cartridge conversion, it's very awkward and slow. The reality of supposedly quick sopping cylinders is not a real thing. I already said earlier, if you think it is, show me some primary sources that show people selling spare cylinders or even the auxiliary gear to carry spare cylinders. It's just not a thing. The Remington also fouls quite quickly, so if you were able to do that very quickly, you wouldn't have a gun that was functioning anyway after a few cylinders. But the fact is that the way this spits, the way you have to hold it in this awkward position, just makes it awkward. It is just neither fish nor fowl. It's the only reason I think that you would have bought one of these back in the day is because it was cheaper than the alternative. But man, I think I'd rather save up and just get the alternative. The only thing it does have going for it is it's quite light. This thing is not a lot to carry around. It weighs definitely less. I didn't put it on a scale, but I can tell you it weighs less than an 1860 Henry. So there's that. But oof, it's not my favorite. But I hope you enjoyed watching me shoot this, and I really love being able to make this sort of content for you. This channel is completely demonetized and supported by viewers like you, and has been now for 9 years. And when I say demonetized, I don't mean demonetized by YouTube, although they do that. I am proactively demonetized. I don't have monetization turned on these videos. I have no sponsors, no overlords. This was purchased to be able to do this review for you and talk about this historical piece of kit via support from Patreons. Patreon.com/InRangeTV. You all have kept this channel alive for years now and still continue to do so, and for that I am greatly appreciative. Every dollar counts. If you can do it, please consider it. Patreon.com/InRangeTV. If you can't, I understand. The other thing you can do is subscribe, click the bell. You may or may not get a notification. They like to shadow ban us, but share with your friends. If you think this is cool, share a link to this to your buddies or to a group that would be of interest to this, because you're the organic algorithm for us. Thanks for watching. There'll be more black powder content coming and more history and all the things we do here on InRange. So see you soon.